So, good day everyone. We are the Morality Group from 12 BSA 03. So, for today's presentation, we are going to present the Rawl's theory of justice. The author attempts to provide a moral theory alternative to a utilitarianism and that address the problem of distributive justice, the distribution of goods in a society. So the theory of justice by John Rawls is used updated from a Kantian philosophy and a variant form of conventional social contract theory.
Developing new utilitarian justification of democratic political order characterized by fairness, equality, and individual rights. This gives us the ideal of fair equality opportunity. His theory of justice, as fairness describes a liberal society, or society of free citizens holding basic equal rights, and cooperating within an egalitarian economic system. Rawls does not believe that in just society, all the benefits, like wealth, must be equally distributed. An unequal distribution of wealth is just only if this arrangement benefits everyone, and when positions that come with greater wealth are available to everyone. He is saying that vast inequalities of wealth and position we observe stem primarily from advantages for which people can take credit. This is his idea that no one deserves his starting place.
For this slide, we will be tackling about the two principles of justice. The first one guarantees each person to have an equal right to the most extensive total system of equal basic liberties compatible with a similar system of liberty for all. This principle is often called the greatest equal liberty principle. Basically, this principle is mainly concerned with the distribution of rights and liberties. Rawls identifies these following basic equal liberties. The first one is the political liberty and freedom of speech and assembly, liberty of conscience and freedom of thoughts, freedom of the person, which includes freedom from psychological oppression and the physical assault and dismemberment or the integrity of the person, the right to hold personal property and freedom from arbitrary arrest and seizure as defined by the concept of the rule of the law. It is a matter of some debate that freedom of contract can be inferred to be included among these basic liberties. Liberties not included in the list, for example, the right to own a certain kind of property and freedom of contract, as understood in the doctrine of laissez-faire, are not basic. So, they are not protected with the priorities of the first principle. For the second principle, here's the next slide.
Social and economic inequalities are to be arranged so that they are both to the greatest benefit on the least advantage, consistent with the just savings principles and attached to offices and positions open to all under conditions of fair equality of opportunity. The second principle of social justice concerns social and economic institutions. Social and economic inequalities are to satisfy two conditions. First, they are to be attached to offices and positions open to all under conditions of fair equality of opportunity, and second, they are to be the greatest benefit of the least advantaged members of society, the difference principle. The second principle focuses on equality. Rawls realized that the society could not avoid inequalities among its people. Inequalities result from such things as one's inherited characteristics, social class, personal motivation, and even luck. Even so, Rawls insisted that a just society should find ways to reduce inequalities in areas where it can act. By offices and positions, in his second principle, Rawls meant especially the best jobs in private business and public employment. He said that these jobs should be open to everyone by society providing fair equality of opportunity. One way for a society to do this would be eliminate discrimination. Another way would be to provide everyone easy to access to education. The most controversial element of his theory of social justice was his difference principle. He first defined it in a 1968 essay. All differences in wealth and income, all social and economic inequalities, he wrote, should work for the good of the least favored. Later, when he wrote a theory of justice, he used the phrase least advantaged members of society to refer to those at the bottom of economic ladder. This might be unskilled individuals earning the lowest wages in the society, yung mga undergrad na hindi nakakuha ng magandang trabaho. Yung mga sinasahod nila maliliit lang, ganun. Under the difference principle, rules favored maximizing the improvement of the least advantaged group in society. He would do this not only by providing fair equality of opportunity, but also by such possible ways as guaranteed minimum or minimum wage. Rawls agreed that his difference principle gave his theory of social justice a liberal character. Finally, Rawls ranked his principle of social justice in order of their priority. The first principle, the basic liberties, holds priority over the second principle. The first part of the second principle, the fair equality of opportunity, holds priority over the second part, the difference principle. But he believed that both the first and second principle together are necessary for a just society.
Rawls' central claim that we should conceive of justice as fairness. To identify that fairness, Rawls develops two important concepts, the original position and the veil of ignorance. In the original position, people are under a veil of ignorance. This means they don't know anything about who they will be in society. His point is that this means they will pick principles which are fair to everyone, since it is rational for them to do so, as they could end up anyone. Rawls specified that the parties in the original position are concerned only with citizens' share of what he calls primary social goods. Rawls also argues that the representatives in the original position would adopt the maximum rule as their principle for evaluating the choices before them.
So next slide, the wheel of ignorance, a moral reasoning device designed to promote impartial decision-making by denying decision-makers access to potentially biasing information about who will benefit most or least from the available options. For example nito ay mayroong ABC company. Then, here comes D and E. Gusto nilang makipag-partner sa ABC company. And then, si D and E ay may kakayahan silang dalawa na makipag-partner sa ABC company. Pero, kalaunan ay nalaman nila na si A pala ay relative niya si E. Then, yung papasok yung wheel of ignorance doon, kung si A ba ay kakausapin niya si B and si na relative niya si X, so si E ang tatanggapin nilang partner sa business. Kasi ang business nila ay pwede lamang tumanggap ng isang partners pa.
Rawls observed that a necessary condition of justice in any society is that each individual should be the equal bearer of certain rights that cannot be disregarded under any circumstances, even if doing so would advance the general welfare or satisfy the demands of a majority. It means that one of the reasons why Rawls formulated this theory is because he wanted the equal access of opportunities and equal rights that every individual must have. Everyone in the society is entitled into government assistance, academic scholarships, job opportunities, and etc. to fulfill and satisfy their needs. And by that, no one will be left behind. And its advantage is that the economy will now grow at a higher rate. Okay, next.
In addition to what Ms. Justice said, Rawls believed that parties would find his favored principle of justice to be especially attractive, winning out over varied alternatives including utilitarianism and right-wing libertarian accounts. They have ends which they seek to advance but prefer to advance them through cooperation with others on mutually acceptable terms. Rawls offers the model of a fair choice, situation within which parties would hypothetically choose mutually acceptable principle of justice.
And now I'll be discussing about the criticisms of Rawls' theory, the benefit of this theory, and the application of John Rawls' justice theory in our modern world. So first, I'll be imparting my knowledge about John Rawls' theory of justice. So this theory of justice is under a social contract theory. Why? Because this theory holds a natural state of human beings. It's a freedom. Freedom ang natural state of human beings. It was stated here. But that human beings will rationally submit to some restrictions on their freedom to secure their mutual safety and benefit. So before going into a decision, they must be into a unanimity of acceptance. Meaning, in this Rawls theory, unanimity of acceptance means it is the requirement that all people involved agree to the contract before it goes into effect. And now, we'll go to this, the criticisms of the theory. First, we have Robert Nozick. Kung hindi nyo na itatanong, Robert Nozick is a colleague of John Rawls, came from Harvard University. Okay? Robert Nozick wrote a theory of entitlement as a direct rebuttal of this Rawlsianism justice theory. Nozick argued that the power of the state may never ethically be used to deprive someone of property because he or she has legally obtained and has the right or inherited in order to distribute it to others who are in need of it. The main point of Robert Nozick here is that he contradicted John Rawls' distributive way of justice. Kasi sabi niya, lahat ng tao has individual rights, has individual decision. In addition, Robert Nozick criticized Rawls' account of distributive justice in his defense of libertarianism. Kay Robert Nozick, mas naniniwala siya sa individualism, while John Rawls, mas naniniwala siya sa distributive justice. And Robert Nozick is the greatest critic of John Rawls because of that. And next we have Alan Bloom. Alan Bloom criticized Rawls for failing to account for the existence of natural right or the laws, the different laws, in his theory of justice, and wrote that Rawls absolutized social union as the ultimate goal, which would conventionalize everything into artifice. Meaning, as what John Rawls' objective on proposing and studying this theory of him, kasi I believe that naniniwala siyang in this modern society, in this 21st century world, napakarami ng nangyayaring injustice sa ating bansa, inequality, poverty, every conflict, all of the conflict are continuously arising, continuously increasing. That's why ginawa niya tong Rawls theory that was criticized by Alan Bloom kasi pinaniniwalaan niya na sabi niya nakalimutan daw ni John Rawls to exist and add in the content ang mga natural right. Next, we have Michael Sandel. Michael Sandel is also a philosopher, and he argued that Rawls encourages people to think about justice while divorced from the values and aspirations that define who they are as persons and that allow people to determine what justice is. Michael Sandel said that, sabi niya ganon, he think that John Rawls are encouraging people na maniwala sa kanya while doon, habang pinaniniwalaan natin yung theory ng justice by John Rawls, sabi ni Michael Sandel, nakakalimutan na daw natin na nawawala sa atin yung sarili nating pananaw at paniniwala tungkol sa justice. Next, we have Sir Charles W. Mills. He is a critic that underlying assumption of Rawls' work as inherently white and thus subject to glaring blind spots. Mills sets that the white fantasy world of Rawlsianism, okay, and its ideal theory against the actual history of racialized oppression in the modern era, and proposes that non-ideal theory is urgently needed to address racial inequality and possible remediations. Sir Charles Mills believed that there's still a lot na mas makakatulong dito sa pagresolba ng inequalities and racial discrimination at kung ano-ano pang conflicts that are rising in our society. And naniniwala siya na there's still an urgent, yung mas existential. That's what Sir Charles Mills believed. That's why he criticized this theory of justice by John Rawls. And next, honestly, there's still a lot of critics. There's still a lot of critics of this theory of justice. The philosophers, different philosophers, economists, as it is related to political issues, it is related to political philosophy. It's very wide, it's really very wide. Moving forward, we have the benefit. The gist is freedom first. Allow variety, but make sure no one is completely excluded and create paths for all. Inequality is only acceptable if it is for everyone to benefit and not just for the benefit of the few. That's it. Meaning to say, freedom first. That's what Sir John Rawls stated. Na kailangan, di ba, sabi niya, there are two principles of this one. First is the freedom, and the second is the equality and inequality. And dinagdagan pa nila ng third, which is the different principles. Sabi niya ganun, what's the benefit of this theory? Simply, if all of us inilagay natin sa isipan natin at sa kaluluwa natin, ang pinakamaganda lang kasi dito is it would be a mindset for all of us that there's still a hope and chance to provoke and halt poverty, inequality, and injustice. In this society, that there's a lot of problems, injustices, diba? Na parang minsan kasi naiisip natin, is there still hope? Is there still a hope? John Rawls stated that, yeah, there's still a hope as long as we need to make sure that no one is completely excluded and create paths for all. Lahat tayo may kalayaan. Lahat tayo nagagamit natin yon. But we have to make sure na sa kalayaan natin yon ay no one is completely excluded. Wala tayong natatapakan, wala tayong nasasaktan, and that's when you can get justice. Kapag may kalayaan ka, gamitin ito sa tama. Kasi, di ba, katulad ng sa ibang bansa, hindi naman ganun kadaling magkaroon ng kalayaan sa, say for example, sa Myanmar. Di ba, nakakalungkot lang na it's very saddening to see those people who are suffering in the war that's happening to their country. They don't have freedom. Mainly, they don't have freedom of speech. Hinuhuli sila ng kanilang government just because gusto nilang lumaban for their freedom. So, tayong mayroong kalayaan, tayong binigyan ng ganitong kalayaan, ng democracy, we have to use it right. We have to use it right. Gawin mo kung anong gusto mong gawin as long as you have to make sure no one is completely excluded and create paths for all. Kapag gumagawa ka ng isang bagay, you have to act and think based on what's the best for everyone. So next, this theory of justice by John Rawls can be applied in many fields, but we will going to discuss about the applications or the application of this theory in the field of business. Kasi siya yung mas nagbe-benefit dito or mas applicable na gamitin sa business ay itong theory of justice. This theory of justice can be applied in business because justice theory provides a method for attaining fairness, which could make it a practical and valuable part of training at all levels of a company. Justice and business is somewhat related and interconnected to each other. There is a subject in school which is the business ethics. Kung ano yung kailangang gawin, kung ano yung kailangang act sa business. Pinag-aaralan yun ethics in business. So aside from that, pwede natin gamitin itong theory of justice ni John Rawls para sa ating business. As what in a partnership? Diba? Ang partnership kasi, before you go into a partnership, there is a mutual communication and agreement between one partner and another partner before going or before forming a partnership. Ganon din sa paggawa or sa pag-attain ng justice. As what related or stated in the book of John Rawls, there are 5 procedural steps to attain this fairness and justice. First is the entering into the contract. We have to first enter into the contract. And there's second, agreeing unanimously to the contract. We have to agree unanimous. It's a unanimous decision. It's a mutual understanding between the partners or between the group of people inside the community. And third, including basic conditions in the contract such as freedom of speech. So all of us have freedom of speech. Fourth, maximizing the welfare of the most disadvantaged persons, meaning those persons who are unable to speak. We have to consider their condition. And fifth, we have to ensure the stability of the contract. And these steps create a system of justice that Rawls believe gave fairness, and it is a proper place above utility and the bottom line. So kapag nagawa natin lahat ng yon, or the conjectures na tinasabi nila, absolutely will go into that fair and justifiable community.
So for the last slide, the justice as fairness subject place behind the veil of ignorance. So no one knows his place in society, his class, position, or social status, nor does anyone know his fortune in the distribution of natural assets and abilities, his intelligence, his strength, and the like. So primarily, these principles promote equality among all. Each individual has the same basic liberties and opportunities. Each individual has a moral obligation to accept the existence of other human beings. All people become equal in their position and desires. We are equal in that each has the basic powers of choice on acting on a sense of justice. And the idea that fair treatment is a matter of giving people what they deserve. In general, people deserve to be rewarded for their effort and productivity, punished for their transgressions, treated as equal persons, and have their basic needs met. However, because these principles may come into conflict, it is often difficult to achieve all these goals simultaneously. People don't know their worth because or behind of this veil of ignorance, man does not know his value in society. There is a verse that says, "We are created wonderfully and fearfully." We're even created in the image of God, and of all that God has created in this world, man has been given so many gifts to use in the world, especially man who was created of God because we have our own mind, as we can desire according to our will. God has given us the intellect to be a perfectly good person. But because of the so-called or because of this behind veil of ignorance, we humans ourselves become ignorant of what abilities we have. We do not see the importance of self, the things that are a person's right. And as a human being, we should know the power the power we have in the society.
That's all. So again, we are the Morality Group from 12 BSA Block 3.